physician might use for fear that they might bind very strongly with melanin and remain tightly bound over a long period of time. So that's one of the, and he continues to kind of spell that question out. In terms of the pineal gland, there has been an explosion of new knowledge. I mean, that stuff is, I mean, the general field is like just multiplying year by year by year. So, for example, in '92, we're talking about magnetic fields in the pineal gland, and that you can treat certain kinds of seizures, which are called seasonal seizures, by exposing the person to a magnetic field, a handheld magnetic field. And people are having 4 to 6 full tonic-clonic seizures a day going down to 0. And so you can treat that with a handheld magnetic field generator, putting over the head, particular part of where the seizure focus originates, and having very good results. The treatment of certain kinds of depression with light, looking upon seasonal affective disorder and seasonal panic attacks as alterations in the pineal release of melatonin that you can then further modify by changing the time that a person is exposed to something, to a light source. Now, mind you, none of these folks have talked about what's the relationship between skin color and the level of pineal gland function. But I hope to have a paper submitted in the next 2 months that will address that. And also the issue of pineal calcification. So in 1992, both of those should be in print in some journal or somewhere. Thank you.
Thank you. Yes, how you doing?
Yes, sir, brother.
A co-worker of mine, he was accidentally shot in the chest.
Yes.
And it had a severe stress on this whole person, to the point that it actually turned his autoimmune system, turned completely out. Process just about done that. I was wondering what effect does that have in his melanin in terms of his autoimmune system, in terms of just devastating the whole melanin process, in terms of just changing everything in his body.
That's a very critical one. It's been shown that the pineal hormone melatonin does affect very important parts of the autoimmune system, and particularly some of the T cells. So when a person melatonin level, for example, when a person gets depressed, he might have been depressed about being shot and being immobilized. I don't know what the condition were around me, being immobilized, loss of income, the pain, chronic pain, and maybe the condition in which this accident occurred may have been very depressing for him. May have mobilized a lot of fear and rage, or a lot of sense of being overwhelmed, and he may have experienced a depression that would result in a lowering of his melatonin levels. And when the melatonin levels were lowered, then the cells that help mediate his autoimmune system became disarrayed. No longer, and the cells, rather than attacking against outside invader cell types, now began to misread his own body and attack his own body, and attack the melanocytes in his skin, and lead to albinism. And that certainly does occur as a stress reaction.
Is that to say that's permanent?
Well, usually there's I'm not up on that particular condition, but usually there's cell death. Usually there's death of the melanocyte. What he may want to consider is there's a person named Sank, S-A-N-D-Y-K, at Albert Einstein College of Medicine in New York City, who would be quite familiar with these concepts. So he may want to consider going, that's not too far from here, and going to New York City, the Albert Einstein College of Medicine, and talking to Ruth and Sank, or have him just consult with them in terms of the role of melatonin and the autoimmune system. But more importantly, that's our responsibility, so that maybe if I come before you in a year or two from now, I can say, oh yes, I know what to do, as your own physician. And that's why you come here to see me, to encourage me to continue on, and also learn from me and make others see the relevance of this kind of work and find how it works in your own life. He may also want to increase the melatonin release. He could increase his melatonin release by taking large amounts of tryptophan, that's present in bananas, for example. He may want to increase the amount of melatonin release. Now, I should have mentioned this. Do his problems get worse during the winter months, or there's no seasonal pattern to it?
I couldn't say that.
He may want to look and see, has the rate at which his problem has come on. He said it's almost complete now. It's almost his entire body now. So those are things. A pigmentation left behind his ear? Pardon? So that's only part of it. Yeah, he's probably lost most of it by now. Whether it's latent or dead, I do not know. Whether the melanocyte is latent, I mean just inactive, or dead, that I just can't say.
Okay,
thank you, brother.
And also people who are involved in different religious societies who go through different initiations, and part of those initiations is there is some activation of the land. The Tibetan Buddhists, for example, who go to operate on the front of the head as part of the initiation process. I was trying to get the sense of, are there people who are involved in activities to stimulate and use this that perhaps we can learn from or get more information about the use of the mind?
You know, I think there are people who do have other practices that can be of value in terms of certain kind of eye practices. You mentioned the Tibetan eye practices in terms of eye exercises that are said to strengthen the pineal. And we also mentioned the Kemetic practices, that the quality of one's life in terms of the ethical practices and the studies of science and nature were another very profound kind of practice that had a very sustaining nature to it. There's probably a natural desire to find the quickest, shortest route, and that probably has short-term value. The other one is more of a kind of a long-term, life-term kind of approach. Again, many of these East Indian or Asiatic styles do have tremendous links with the ancient Kemetic parent sources. Hearing that when Kemet, that prior to the fall of Kemet, according to George G. and James Sloan Lake, there was a worldwide university system throughout the world with branches on all the major continents and headquarters in Egypt. And that when the old world fell, then these various places became out of contact with each other, and many of the initiate scientists, as they left Kemet, as it was being overrun, went south, went west, and went east into these various places as their place of sanctuary to continue their work and to continue their studies. So there was that kind of history to it. So a lot of them do have some of the same traditions.
The reason why I asked the question is I was wondering if you make reference to the Kemetic system, but I was wondering if there are any things you could point to specifically that could help a person who is looking for an institution to form some things that they can get involved in a real way.
Okay.
That point in the direction. I know that, for example, there were classes in, I guess, in the LA area where
yes.
Places like that. Are there other places perhaps that one can go to and get involved in a consistent way, something that can lead a person in that direction? That's totally.
Yeah, sure. I mean, I think it's important to have support groups around you to kind of share information and keep certain disciplines active. And you mentioned the Aquarian Spiritual Center, who has a Black Gnostic Studies, and they have a mail order system that's kind of can be obtained any place in the country just by mail. And there are other groups. I mean, there is ASCAC, for example, that has active studies, which you've now formed in this area, in which you have a access to an international group of African scholars, sisters and brothers, who can show you the library, really, in terms of what books to have access to promote certain studies. So that one can go into the 42 negative confessions, the 42 assessors, and study these things in detail.